All right, so we're going to get on to Chapter 9, The Age of Conglomerates in An American Sickness by Elizabeth Rosenthal. Again, this is the Luigi Mangione, Luigi's Bookshelf series. We're discussing An American Sickness. We've been going through chapter by chapter, and I've said in the last few videos as we move along that I'm getting more and more depressed, I think, as this book goes along. One, because somebody had read it all the way through and said it doesn't get any better. It doesn't give you any hope, even though that supposedly it's how healthcare became big business and how you can take it back. I asked the person who finished this book, does it tell you how to take it back? And he's like, not really. We'll see. However, what's getting harder and harder for me to do is to stay with this because it's just depressing. It's just, if you haven't figured out, by the way, if you've watched 8 chapters so far of this review, and if you haven't figured out that the American health system is predatory and broken, then I don't know what to say. Like, you don't probably need the rest of the book to figure that out. It just gets horrendous. And in fact, this chapter will be probably shorter than any chapter we've done before because I reading and explaining every single part of it is getting more and more tedious. You might actually appreciate me giving more of a summary and less reading. But let's jump into it real quick. And again, this may be quicker. So we're going to scroll in. We're in part 1 still, The Age of Conglomerates. And so we're going to jump to chapter 9, The Age of Conglomerates. And basically, this is basically talking about, I just said basically 2 times, about large insurance companies buying smaller insurance companies and or pieces of the insurance industry and gobbling them all up so that everything is owned by 2 or 3 big, huge powerhouses. And doing so because it lets them control the prices and the profits all the way across the board. And so every single time a conglomerate buys stuff out and gets bigger and bigger, it's not good for consumers. It's good for big business. And one of the key takeaways in this chapter that I want you to get, it's probably the biggest takeaway, is again, it's going to end with the Department of Justice going after these big mega corporations that are buying everything up and basically doing antitrust violations. This is again at the heart of the whole Luigi Mangione argument. Did someone take out the healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, because his company had been already under investigation by the Department of Justice for buying out smaller companies and having antitrust violations? They were already being fought by the Department of Justice. You're going to see this book written well before that event happened. This book was written before Brian Thompson and that whole situation and that Department of Justice investigation. The Department of Justice has been going after the health insurance industry for some time. Let me point out one other diatribe, if you will, before we begin this. There is so much disgusting amount of money in this that I will tell you that if I were a conspiracy theorist kind of guy, I would say senators, congressmen, everyone involved in trying to stop this behemoth is in danger for their own lives. There is so much money, they are not going to let somebody write laws that impact their business. In fact, again, this chapter once again is going to show the common theme, which is that every single time the government makes steps to try to make it better for consumers, they find a way to make it more profitable. And at this point, these behemoths have billions of dollars. They're more wealthy than governments. They can take out anyone they want to. So I would be fearful if I were a congressman and I was trying to get behind some kind of legislation to stop the behemoth insurance industries, because they could have anybody taken out with the kind of money that they have. It is a disgusting amount of money. I just want you to fathom the billions of dollars, what billions of dollars means. They will not let that system come to a halt. So what are you supposed to do? What is America supposed to do? This is billions of dollars. They can literally have anyone taken out that gets in their way. It is, I think, a behemoth that is out of control, and we're being steamrolled, and it's not going to get any better. Woe to anybody who stands in the way of the insurance industry at this point, or the health insurance industry. But I will try to be brief on this chapter as much as possible, because I don't want to get into the nitpicks about how they buy out the smaller things. But we'll just focus on a few things. So here, Blue Cross showed that the hospital bill alone came to, that I know I'm jumping right into a story. The Blue Cross showed that the hospital bill alone came to $122,600 for 4 nights, although the insurer had negotiated it down to $54,000. Once again, these differences in numbers should be disgusting to us. A person gets billed $122,000, but after negotiating, it comes down to $54,000. Well, what was the real price on that bill then if you can drop off that much money? Because it's, again, you can charge whatever you want for insurance, because if there's insurance involved, the insurance will pay anything. Anyways, and or still more than $10,000 a day. That did not include the fee for the implant, the surgeon, or the anesthesiologist. For that, I could have taken the doctors and nurses to Maui, this person noted. So again, this is our health insurance scam in America. They bill whatever they want because insurance will cover it. They try to tell you that don't worry about it, your insurance is covering the majority of it. If you negotiate with them, they might knock a whole bunch of it off. But at the end of the day, your insurance premiums get so high. At some point, I think they talk about a person whose insurance premiums, here it is, although Blue Cross picked up the lion's share of the bill, this is the next highlight, I did pay really. So it says, this is where they're admitting, yeah, Blue Cross picked up the lion's share of the bill, but I did pay really because my premium is $2,000 a month and keeps rising. I'm angry at this system because it seems predatory. No effing shit, it's predatory. Yes, there are a lot of people in America, I hate to say this, there's a lot of people in America who are not getting by on much more than $2,000 a month. If everything that you freaking make is going towards health insurance, you're just working so that you can have health insurance. And then, by the way, the predatory system is doing everything it can to not pay out when you need them. So you'll pay $2,000 a month in premiums, and then they will deny, or deny, defend, depose, delay, all those things. This got somebody shot, in my opinion. So, at a certain point, the major effect of consolidation, this is consolidating, buying smaller companies and gobbling them all up, was simply a huge rise in prices. Economic research has now shown because hospital conglomerates that have driven out competition can rise the prices with abandon. So again, these are never done for the consumer. It's done for making more and more money. And you know this. You don't even have to be told this. At what point do we need this book anymore? We know what the system is. We know what these monsters are doing with this. The monsters meaning the healthcare system, the predatory healthcare system. So I have to be careful when I call them monsters because, again, it sounds like you're advocating violence. I would say, again, the people who would do this to other human beings are showing them to be the type of stuff that we would call monsters. The humans who prey upon other human beings in a predatory manner and drive them into bankruptcies and drive them into going completely bankrupt and losing their children's future and everything so that they can make a few extra bucks. That's monstrous in my humble opinion. Forces like rising costs and declining payments for services have made it difficult for hospitals and physicians to continue operating on their own. In a little over a decade, at the beginning of the 21st century, more than 70 California hospitals had to close. Small hospitals that tended primarily to poor patients and those on Medicaid were particularly vulnerable. So again, it's talking about these conglomerates that are making it harder and harder for the small hospitals and those who serve the poor to be able to operate. If you're not making money, you're out of business, period, in America. Against this backdrop, Sutter, this is a company that they're talking about tons, Sutter, could offer strategic business deals, buying a financially troubled hospital and reversing its fortunes by restructuring and charging patients far more for services. So, struggling hospitals can't keep up with the rising costs and all this. So what happens? A big company like Sutter comes in and says, look, let us help your hospital. We'll turn things around. We'll turn it into a profit fucking machine. We will make you money. And again, consumers are the only ones that get hurt. So the hospital stays afloat. They get bought out by a big conglomerate. The conglomerates get bigger and bigger and bigger. And the people who can't afford insurance, they get the shaft. All right. Sorry to use that phrase. Over the next 2 years, he encountered pressure to place the good of the conglomerate over the good of his patients. This is talking about a doctor who's complaining. Over the next 2 years, he encountered the pressure to place the good of the conglomerate over the good of his patients. There was a heavy pressure to refer patients for testing and surgery within the Sutter system, which was overpriced, he said. I wasn't really able to be my patient's advocate. By 2012, Dr. Lukowski severed ties with Sutter. So what's happening is, he found that Sutter would charge patients a lot more than everybody else. So he would try to refer his patients to where they could get it done cheaper, and he was punished for doing those things, and heavy pressure was put on him to send them to the Sutter system, the big conglomerate. And so he couldn't, as he said, be an advocate for his own patients. He has to go where the money's at if he has any kind of relationship with Sutter. The only option is break your ties with Sutter, and then you go out of business because you can't afford to not be in a big conglomerate. This is, again, I don't even want to have to explain this. It's too complicated. It's too difficult. And all it really means is we're all getting screwed in this country. Growing health care. Okay, so then it's talking about EMR, which is the electronic records system. So there was a move to move people towards electronic medical records. And the government was doing this and once again, people, The government is trying to, the US government at some level is trying to fix the problem of these out of control healthcare industry. And so they come up with an idea. Maybe if we have electronic medical records, it would save consumers money in the long run. Oh, no, the healthcare insurance industry, or the health insurance industry, has found a way to profit once again. If you're going to make them use electronic records, great. We can find a way to loophole that shit and make even more money. The message of this book has always been, every single time they try to do something to fix the problem, the industry is ahead of them and finds a way to flip it into more money for themselves. Let's see if we can get to a little bit of that in this paragraph. Growing health systems often effectively protect their market by controlling electronic medical records, EMR, a tool originally intended to improve communication between hospitals and physicians. The idea of digital record keeping in healthcare was considered to be beneficial that the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 included $19 billion in incentives to develop and deploy the technology, one of the largest publicly funded infrastructure investments in the nation has ever made in such a short period of time in healthcare or any other field. Let me break that through the universal translator, as I often say. The government thought it would be so good for consumers in the long run that they invested $19 billion in incentives to get all of the hospital systems over to electronic medical records, because it was going to be better for American healthcare and help rein in some of the controls. No. The industry found a way to take those $19 billion in incentives, make profit off of it, and then make it more profitable for themselves when they implemented what the government was trying to do to curb costs. You can't win this system. It's billions of dollars. You can't win. Again, woe to anybody who tries to stop this system. It's out of control. The first step under President Obama's High-Tech Act was to require doctors and hospitals to go electronic with their record keeping. The second step, required a few years later, was termed meaningful use, prodding doctors and hospitals to deploy the new technology for the good of the patients. Okay, so Obama says, hey, let's do this thing. Let's incentivize the healthcare industry to get consumer costs under control and for the good of the patients. Sending records to another hospital or doctor with the click of a mouse, or allowing patients to review their lab results at home without waiting for a doctor's call. Sounds like it's going to save everybody money and time. This is going to be great. The consumers are going to benefit, aren't they? Aren't they? Of course they're not. Sutter spent $50 million to develop and install an EMR system, electronic record system. Whether intentionally or not, that system, Sutter Community Connect, became a barrier blocking competitions from well-reimbursed tests and ancillary services. So they used the electronic medical records system to basically manipulate it so that money always came their way. That's what they used the electronic medical record system for. It wasn't going to be the benefit. How did you think it was going to be a benefit of the American people? This system is out of control. They'll take your money and say, hey, thanks for the $19 billion in investments in our industry. We will use that very well, thank you very much, to make ourselves some more profit. Thank you. All right. Some commercial labs have employed a similar strategy, installing free EMR software in doctors' offices that is programmed to order any test selected from their own labs. Oh, so let's see. We're a big, huge conglomerate. We own everything. We're being required by the government to move to electronic records. So let's go ahead and take some of that $19 billion that they invested in this. We'll build software, and then we'll build software that sends all of the tests that people need right to us, to our people, and we'll make it so that we're the ones who receive all the money and all the benefit. Fantastic. Good job. So smaller outside testing and radiological centers like Peninsula had no way to input results into Sutter EMR. They had to fax results or call them into the doctor. Sometimes those extra steps made a huge difference in care. For example, when a doctor needed the results of a scan to decide if urgent surgery was required. Sometimes the extra steps were just a hassle. There was a 90% decline in referrals from certain areas and for particular tests. What's that saying? It's saying that they basically made it so that if you're not in the Sutter network and you're not using Sutter services to do your tests and make Sutter money, you had to fax your results in and they'll get around to it. And so it just became more hassle. So it's basically play ball with Sutter and use their system, or wait around and we'll get to you when we can get to you. And so that's how they bring everybody online. The government invested heavily in EMRs, this is the electronic medical records, as a tool to enable good patient care. Again, this is what the government's intent was. So I'm not even a huge fan of the government, but at least what this book is trying to say is that every single time the government is trying to help people, which I don't even believe that the government tries to help people. But let's take Rosenthal's belief that the government is continually trying to help people. Every time they do so, the health insurance industry makes it profitable for themselves. So with the idea that they would, they wanted to invest in this for the patient's good, with the idea that they would allow the sharing of medical records between sick persons' physicians. But competing health systems have little financial incentive to do so. Instead, they have frequently become tools for conglomerates to protect market share and dominate the market, which we talked a little bit about that. And again, it's so complex to try to break it down. It's just too much. Read the chapter. Unfortunately, I'm trying to give you some thoughts on it, but it's just sick. Epic is currently building, and Epic's one of the big companies, Epic is currently building a new $1 billion IT system for a large part of Denmark, where the ability to share patient data among hospitals and doctors is an essential requirement of their system. Patients will have direct access to their medical data, and the system will allow referrals, discharge summaries, data, and prescriptions to be shared securely among all providers. That would be great for Denmark, but in the United States, EMRs have evolved to put business before patients. Oh, look! So, we'll design this in other countries that are not out of control. They'll profit from it, and their patients, their consumers will do better. But in America, no, in America we do things for money. This is about business. This is about our shareholders. It's not about patients, period. When Dr. Duncan, this is skipping ahead again, when Dr. Duncan pointed out to a Sutter executive that commercially insured patients were leaving town to avoid the conglomerate's high charges, the response, he says, was that Sutter said it would consider lowering the charges for elective services to gain back the business, but not for emergencies, since patients and extremists couldn't travel. What does that mean? Let's run that through the universal translator. So a doctor is pointing out, look, you are forcing people to use your services, which are 3 or 4 times higher than everyone else, and so people are electing to just leave town and go get their stuff done somewhere where they're not forced to use your services. So they said, okay, maybe if they're going to leave town and not give us their money, we can maybe lower our prices a little bit, but not if it's an emergency and they had to get taken care of in our state or in our town, because they have no choice. So the prices will still stay high if they have no choice to leave. But in areas where they're allowed to leave and they could go somewhere else, we might negotiate the price a little bit to keep them in town. But if we have them by the balls and they can't go anywhere else, that price stays high. What a good job. They're so friendly to the American people. All right. In the past decades, emergency room care has been quickly commercialized. In the past decades, emergency room care has been quickly commercialized, governed often not by patients' needs, but by finances. None of this should ever even have to be read. You get it by now. Many states, notably Texas and Colorado, have permitted the operating of freestanding ERs, often owned by entrepreneurial physicians. If a patient arrives via an ambulance and is seriously injured or really sick or had a heart attack, a doctor checks him out and sends him to the nearest real emergency department connected to a hospital with facilities like operating rooms and cardiac laboratories. Aside from the risk of delays in treatment, the sequence results in bills for 2 separate high-level ER visits and a charge for emergency transport. So understand what this is. This is a freestanding, independent ER room that doesn't have a hospital attached to it and any ability to actually treat you. And the ambulance will bring you first to this freestanding ER place with no actual ability to do anything for you, so that you can be triaged and pay an emergency room fee at that freestanding ER room that can't do anything for you. And if you do need some care, they'll send you to another ER room with places that have facilities that can actually fix you, and then you get charged from their ER purpose too. None of that is good for the consumer, but it's great for business. America. Most states that allow freestanding ERs at least insist that they stay open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and take all emergencies regardless of their ability to pay the customers to pay. So the downside is, okay, if you're going to do these freestanding ERs, you at least must treat everybody whether they have insurance or not. Though they cannot accept Medicare or Medicaid, since government insurers insist that to qualify for an ER and bill ER rates, an emergency room must actually be physically connected to a hospital. In other words, Medicaid and Medicare basically was smart enough to say, I'm not going to pay an ER that's freestanding and has no ability to actually fix anybody. I'll pay only the ER that actually you can get triaged in and go see somebody and get it fixed, not these freestanding ones. And so they may have to treat everybody who comes in whether they have insurance or not, but Medicare is not going to pay for it because they're like, that's dumb. Again, Medicare in a lot of ways seems to be what drives the entire health industry, because Medicare is people are trying to base everything on Medicare because Medicare is actually the one that fights back a little bit against the predatory system. But again, they've worked around that. So we're going to skip through. I think we're almost done. Yeah, we're on the last thing. This is called the end game. What an appropriate thing. Conglomerates beget conglomerates. To maintain profits, huge insurers joined forces to strengthen their hands. Here's the ending thought. In 2015, the insurance giants Aetna and Anthem announced deals to take over their rival Colossi, Humana, and Cigna, respectively, thereby reducing the number of major insurers from 5 to only 3. I added the word only. The CEOs of Aetna and Anthem, Mark Bartolini, which was compensated $27.9 million in 2015, and Joe Swedish, who was compensated $13.6 million in 2015, lobbied for congressional approval. Though it initially waffled over whether the mergers should be labeled anti-competitive and prevented, the U.S. Department of Justice filed to block them in late July 2026, and it looked to be an epic fight. This is what's been going on for a while. This is what happened in the United Healthcare situation. The Department of Justice is seeing an out-of-control industry that's buying up every part of the healthcare system from top to bottom and getting bigger and bigger and more out of control, and consumers are being destroyed by it. And so they're filing antitrust mergers and saying, stop buying all this shit. And the industry is saying, nope, we're doing it anyways. And they bought off judges, and judges are saying, yep, they can allow to go through. And eventually, like in the case of the recent Department of Justice investigation into United Healthcare, DOJ drops their lawsuit because they can't win. The judges are bought off. Everything in America is bought off because when you have billions of dollars, everyone is bought off. Everyone has got too much money in this system. It is out of control. So there you go. I'm done with chapter 9. I don't know how much farther we can go through it. As a parting thought, I want to tell you this. We started to monetize now on YouTube. We have subscriber-only content on YouTube. So I do recommend, if you like this content, to subscribe there. It's only $2.99, by the way, for the entry-level subscription, and there's a $9.99 version and a $14.99 version. Each one steps up a little bit, but you get a crap ton of stuff for $2.99, including member-only videos. One of the things I'm considering, and I don't know if I want to do this or not, I feel like the work, if you will, of reading these books is important for public consumption. So I don't want to stick it behind a consumer-only area. Having said that, these videos, my review of American Sickness, and then by extension my review of Howard Bloom's book for the Idaho 4 murders, are the least watched videos of everything that I make. It's almost like, why am I doing it? Because only a handful of people are really interested in it. Now here's the problem. Those of you who are watching it keep telling me all the time, oh my God, I love this series, don't stop doing it. And so I want to keep doing it. But it's hurting, in a way, the algorithm. And why do you care? Okay, well, because the algorithm brings people to the channel. And if my channel algorithm's getting hurt because I have a bunch of videos that are considered stinkers by YouTube standards, where nobody's really watching them, then it makes it look like I'm not a very influential influencer. And so all of my videos could potentially suffer. So there's a part of me that's like, well, and here's the good thing. Behind a paywall, behind the subscriber-only area, YouTube doesn't count that algorithm. So if only one person views 20 videos that I make in the subscriber only area, it doesn't count it against me that only one person views those videos. It doesn't count as the public algorithm. So there's a part of me that's contemplating moving the book series behind for members only. And I don't think it's fair to you that you have to pay to continue on. And I know some of you won't, and I don't blame you. I get it. Like, I don't want to have to pitch you for money. And I also don't want to take something away from you that you're already getting. But this is something that I'm contemplating, because again, these videos are hurting potentially my algorithm and making my channel less effective, because these are considered kind of stinker videos because there's only a few of us really interested in this topic. And yet I feel like it's really important to be out there in the public. So I don't want to stick it behind a paywall because, again, if it's so important that people should be hearing it, I shouldn't force anybody to pay for it. So I don't know where I'm going with all that, other than I would love your feedback. Tell me whether or not you think I should continue to do this if it's hurting the channel and making the channel less effective. Do I just keep doing it anyways as a public service? And that's okay if it is. Maybe that's what I should do, is just keep doing it because it's a public service. Or do I consider moving it behind a paywall? And you know, would 2 or 3 of you who are watching this pay for the paywall and to continue the series, which will give me then the benefit of not getting hurt by the videos, but you get to have the benefit of the continuing the series. It's just food for thought. I'm not begging for your money. I'm not trying to do that. But I just want you to know that these thoughts are going through my head because, again, the final thing I have to say is this takes an emotional toll on me. This book sucks ass. It doesn't suck ass in the sense that the book sucks or that the author isn't good at what they're writing. It's just so effing depressing. Our system is broken in America, and we know it. I don't need any. I'm 51% through, or we are 51% through the book. Do you get the idea at this point that the American healthcare system is broken? Do you get the idea why somebody might be super angry at the system? I don't know that we need another 50% of this book to see that. And according to one guy, it's not going to get any better. But having said that, thank you for listening once again. Thank you, by the way, to some of you very vocal who are always commenting on these videos and always giving me encouragement. You know who you are, but super thank you for being there for me and always encouraging me, because you are driving I think there's only 2 or 3 people, 3 I can think of off the top of my head, who are always supporting me on these videos, and you're the ones that are driving me. 2 or 3 people. Other videos that I've got thousands of views on some of my videos, and these will just get you know, a handful of views, but you're enough. You're enough to make me feel like I'm doing something here because of how adamant you are that you're getting something out of these. So again, thank you so much for listening, and have a good one.